In conversation with Scott J. Moses. Scott Moses is the author of the novella A Own Unique Affliction, Shortwave Publishing. An active member of the Horror Writers Association, he has sold over 25 short stories too, but not limited to Cosmic Horror Monthly, the No Sleeper podcast, Planets Calm, and elsewhere. His work has been praised by Lead Baron, Brian Evanson, Eric LaRocca, Cynthia Pelayo, Ailey Piper, and others. He also edited What One Wouldn't Do, an anthology on the length one might go to. He's Japanese American and lives in Maryland. You can find him at Scott Moses or www.scottjmoses.com. And on today's episode of Auto Interview, it's my utmost pleasure, joy, and excitement to have on the show with me today, Scott J. Moses. How are you doing today, Scott? Welcome on the show.
Well, thank you, Peter. I'm doing well. I'm happy to be here. Good to talk to you.
Absolutely, it's my joy really that we're here to sit down and have a conversation around your bodies of amazing literature work, which I find to be quite fascinating, really. And I'm quite excited that we are here to talk about it. So thank you very much once again for coming on.
Nope, the honor's all mine. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yeah. So, Scott, I'd like us to start today's conversation by talking about your book, the one titled Our Own Unique Affliction on Amazon. And I must say that that is such a compelling, a captivating title name to even give a book, Our Own Unique Affliction. It's so idiomatic in nature, and as a poet, it sounds quite poetic to me in nature. Now, I'd like to ask you, what inspired the making of this book? What led you to write it? What was the time you realized you wanted to tell a story, and the story asked to be this book? If you can run us through the making of the book, through the foundation of it, that would be great.
Yeah, of course, and thank you very much. Yeah, it was well, it started as a short story. The first chapter of the book is actually was a standalone short story, and the book was actually written kind of out of necessity. I was in a pretty dark place in life, just struggling with meaning and purpose, and just really what I was doing here in general. And a lot of the themes of the book have to do with meaning and purpose and
Mm,
just finding that fire again once you've lost it.
mm.
So I guess long story short, no pun intended, it was written out of necessity and it really took me through a dark time.
That's a good one, actually. And it's quite an interesting one to get to know about that basically, to get to know about how it was inspired, what led you to start it. And also, your novella tackles themes like grief, anxiety, loss, and essential questions through a horror lens, which I find to be quite fascinating. That must have been an amazing work that you've done in there. Now, what draw you to exploring mental health and emotional trauma in a genre that is often seen as purely fantastical or terrifying?
Oh, well, thank you. That's a great question. It's funny the way you asked the question as well because on the surface, I guess people will see a monster or something, and they think it's
Yeah.
kind of shallow or pulpy, which that fiction is fine as well. But there's
Mm,
so much horror out there right now that it's got a beating, bleeding heart, and it says so much more about our experience here in life. And I think horror is the genre, not that other genres you can't do it as well, but horror is the genre that I think you can really do it well because we all have things we fear. And
yeah.
once we group around those fears, there's a lot of empathy to be found because we all have the same thoughts at different times or similar times, and there's just a lot of shared experience in horror, and I think it's a way to look at those things we fear, like for example, becoming ill or getting sick or losing
Mm,
someone, and we can look at those in almost an indirect way through the genre of
absolutely.
horror. um, you don't have to like stare right at like the fact of mortality. You can read a story about mortality, but you still
Mm,
get the same kind of meat from it. And you can do that with other genres of fiction, of course,
yeah.
but horror just I'm just kind of drawn to it. I can't really say why, but it's the vehicle that I love and probably what I'll write. as far as I know in the future. So
Yeah. That's an amazing answer you've got to that question. Thank you so much for
thank you.
exploring much a bit deeper and, weaving it all in out. Now, I'd like you to show the book to the cover if you have a copy close by. A own
Sure.
unique affliction.
Yeah.
That's an amazing cover, quite fascinating. Would you like to talk about the making of the cover?
Sure. Actually, we actually got really lucky. The cover artist is Matt Seth Barnes, and the publisher and I were kind of ta Shortwave Books is the publisher. We were tossing around cover ideas and things like that. And this was
Mm.
actually a pre-made cover. He had just made this just on his own, and he was just selling it, and
Oh.
it just really worked perfectly. The whole story is about a vampire coming to grips with the loss of her human life and just kind of the dichotomy there. And just as you can see, there's just the woman staring at a dead version of herself. And it was too perfect to not contact Matt about. I'm just really glad it worked out. But yeah, Matt is a beautiful artist, and I highly recommend his work to anyone. Um, yeah, pretty blessed to have this cover for sure.
Mm. That's an amazing one as well. Quite beautiful, really. Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah. And you also know, Scott, you have a strong background in short fiction. How did writing a longer narrative, structured like a novella, change your approach to pacing, character development, and world building? I love your take on that.
Oh yeah, of course. And thank you for the question. It is kind of a learning curve, right? Like
Mm,
sh short fiction, you're kind of just writing I guess I call it the dessert. Like you're writing the climax of the story, and that is the story. It's like the funnest part, in my opinion, to write the climax of a story. And whereas in a novella or novel, you have to build up to that. So
mm,
it was interesting. Like I somewhat cheated with this book, I guess you could say, and that
mm,
each section is almost a self-contained story. So it was almost like writing multiple short fiction pieces in a linear form and then just kind of putting them together. Have you ever read Stephen Graham Jones
I've
before?
heard about that, but I haven't really read it. It rings a bell. I've watched a lot of reviews of it on
He,
YouTube.
he's an excellent author, and he has a book, Mongrels, that it's a werewolf novel, but it's written in very much the same way, and that each chapter is almost its own
Mm,
short story, but they tell an overarching story as well. And that
mm,
really, I was like, I think I could maybe do something like that. And now that I'm writing novels, I think that was a nice bridge to
mm,
getting into a longer form. So, long-winded answer short, yeah, it was like learning a new language in a way. But
yeah.
it was fun. It's just it takes more patience, I think. Definitely, it takes
Mm,
more patience.
that's a beautiful answer you've got in there towards the
Oh, thank you.
making of this. I love it so much. Thank you very much for sharing with us. That's a fascinating one. And now I want to ask you because you've called empathy the foundation of horror. Empathy as the foundation of horror. How do you approach building vulnerability and emotional realism in characters before introducing fantastical or terrifying elements to it that makes it to be typically horror-like in nature?
Yeah, I think empathy is definitely the cornerstone of horror because if you don't care for the character, or if you don't feel for the character, you're not
Mm,
going to care what happens to the character, or if they're scared, or
absolutely.
who cares? And I would even argue is a strange word, but I would even go as far as to say that empathy is the cornerstone of
Mm,
us as a species making it. It's incredibly important, like just to be able to take a walk in someone else's shoes and see the world through their eyes, and in turn, your world gets larger. So, anyway, I digress. But yeah, empathy in horror is extremely important. And again, we all have fears, and horror is a way to explore those universal fears, in my opinion, such as losing someone you love, or getting ill, or death, and I don't know, the end of a chapter of your life and the beginning of a new one. It's just a way to explore those emotions, almost like going to the gym to build that empathy skill in a way that you can take into the real world. I think reading fiction is incredibly important um,
mm,
for that. And I think if people read more fiction, it would only help the world, honestly. I think we'd
mm,
be a lot more understanding of one another.
mm. Oh, wow. That's an amazing point you've raised in there. That's an amazing point you've raised in there. Thank you very much for sharing. That's beautiful to know. Now, I wanted to ask you, how did you first get into writing? And why did you have to, of all genres available? I hope this doesn't sound rude. Why did you have to go with horror of all genres available? Was horror always the genre that called to you? And speaking of horror classic, do you find yourself more drawn to vampires or werewolves and why? Oh, I need to say vampires were my most lovely sort of horror category and the witchcraft type as well. But I love Vampire Diaries. Yeah, I love
Okay.
your answer to that too.
Sure, of course. But yeah, well, how I started is I remember being a little kid in elementary school. You're probably 7 or 8 in elementary school, I guess, and just writing Jurassic Park stories and Pokemon stories. It just was a blast for me. And then I remember in middle school, it was about 8th grade, I guess. A teacher just assigned us to write a short fiction story. We could choose anything
Mm,
we wanted, and I actually wrote a werewolf story and I spent like 5 hours on it, and I was not a school kid. Like I loathed school. It was not for me. But I was like, man, I'm really like enjoying this. Like I'm sure you've heard of the flow state before, where you like are
mm,
so passionate about something, like you just kind of get lost in it. Like it can be music or working out or running or
yeah.
I I found that state in writing, and I was like, man, I think I've like found the thing. I don't know. I think everybody's searching for that thing, and I think I found it then. So that's probably how I got my start. I wrote all my life, but I really started
Mm,
trying to write to like to take it more seriously, I guess you'd say around
mm.
25, and I'm 35 this year. So for the
Oh.
last 10 years, I've really been like really writing every day and like really pursuing,
Mm,
the goals. I guess it's kind of like asking a spider where it gets its web. I'm not really sure why. I'm just kind of drawn to the genre. It's just my favorite vehicle to there's a lot of heart in horror. And
mm,
I guess one of my earliest memories as a child is my dad is kind of holding me off of a
mm.
ferry, and he's asking my mother if he can drop me because I was just being a really terrible kid. He's joking, of
Wow.
course. He was joking. But
Oh.
that's like one of my first memories, and I think that probably has something to do with it. Uh, but yeah, I don't know. I just love horror, and there's a
Mm,
lot of it's a very emotional genre, and I think it's the one that hits home the most, at least for me. It's just like the bleeding heart of fiction, in my opinion. I just love it. And then for vampires versus werewolves, yeah, I wrote a vampire book. Vampires are cool and everything, but I've been howling at the moon since I was a little boy. I've always wanted to be a werewolf ever since I was a little kid. Um, so vampires, they live forever.
yeah.
So I would argue that maybe they don't actually truly live
Mm,
very fervently. Whereas if you know things are going to end one day, a werewolf to me is all about vitality in the moment. Like they change, they're so in the present moment. Just you can smell, taste things on the air. I think they're really living life. And in Stephen Graham Jones's Mongrels, every time they change, they actually take time off of their life. Like it takes a lot
mm,
out of them to do so. So I think they're very present um, in that form, I guess. So I think I would empathize a lot more with a werewolf, given that I too one day
mm,
will pass from this earth. So I'm trying to really
mm.
wrench this life for everything it's got to offer. So love vampires. They were the vehicle for this story, of course, but I'm definitely a werewolf at heart. Definitely.
Wow. That's a beautiful answer to that. You've said a lot in answering that question, which I find to be quite fascinating. First of all, it's lovely to get to know you started when you're 27 and you're 35 now, and it's been 10 years looking back with that journey, which is quite fascinating. And I love some of your lovely speech and answer to that. And I love because I know sometimes too, there are conversation on the internet around werewolf and vampires. Which one pertains to you the most? Which do you love most as far as horror is concerned? I would first say I haven't really read a lot of horror novel, but the first one I did many years ago, I think it was more vampire, and I love it. It was titled
Hmm,
Dust After Death. I still remember it was
hmm,
written by a little known author. Yeah, Gregory J. something. Yeah. It's very lovely, which I find to
Hmm.
be quite fascinating. So that was my introduction into vampire horror novel, and I love it. It's a series novel. I had
Hmm.
to even message George and said, please, would you have a second series upcoming? I'm not quite sure. I got tired of Haxin. I don't know what's going on with him. If it's going to quiet, I write another one, but yeah. So it was just so lovely and very great. And
Hmm.
also I've experienced a bit of werewolf as well in writing. But
Hmm.
you're leaning towards a part. I'm much of a vampire person. Watching the movie, reading them sometimes got you wondering, are these actually real? Because, the idea of vampires, do vampires really exist? It's so captivating that you got to just imagine in your head, oh, it would be nice if possible. I can meet a vampire, but I would love to do that from a far distance just so I will need to run if I need
Yeah.
to.
I mean, who's to say, right? Every culture on this earth has a vampire legend, which I find is interesting.
Mm.
I'll leave that there. I just think that's interesting.
Beautiful, really. Thank you. Now, I'd like us to go to diversify a little bit now, because one of the things that intrigue me most as a reader and writer myself is to sit back, fold my head, grab a cup of coffee, and listen to readers' feedback. And you may want to agree with me that one of the things that makes literature to be quite complex is a way that it can be interpreted in different ways by different readers based on their opinions. And sometimes some readers might get the intention the author intended while writing the novel. Some might be close to getting the message, some may be far from getting the message, and some might just hilariously and I'd say, in quote, miraculously misunderstand the book and interpret it upside down. And as fascinating as they sound, I would like to ask you, how do you feel when readers interpret your work differently from what you intended? How does that make you feel as a storyteller?
Well, it's interesting, right? I mean, once you release something into the world, it's no
Mm,
longer yours, so it doesn't matter how someone interprets it, really. I mean, of course, sometimes I don't even know what I'm trying to say until I've reread what I've
yeah.
written, and I'm like, oh, there's actually a running theme in here. Like I'm
Mm,
just having fun or writing my thoughts down. So, yeah, I've had many people message me and they'll say like, "Hey, this book really helped me deal with like the loss of my family member or something, and this is why."
mm,
And what they'll tell me is not what I had in mind really at all, but like
mm,
the way it made them feel, I was definitely writing from a place of that feeling as well. So
yeah.
I don't think there's any wrong way to interpret a story. I'm just grateful at all that if someone comes away with something from it,
Mm.
um, that's fine with me. Even if they hate it, I mean, hate is a pretty passionate act as well. So if I can make someone hate, I mean,
Yeah,
okay. I don't
yeah,
know. Just to evoke emotion in general is kind of just I'm grateful to do so.
absolutely.
So I don't know. It doesn't matter, I guess, if they're picking up what I'm putting down as well. Really, I'm just glad they're reading it, I guess you could say.
Yeah.
But the ones who empathize with it and get it, that is kind of like the cherry on top, right? Like
Mm,
it's like, oh, you've walked a similar path to me and you understand.
mm.
It definitely, I guess it comes back to empathy.
Absolutely does.
It's like we've had similar
Absolutely.
journeys, so I guess I
Yeah,
would say that's kind of nice when that happens. But
yeah,
it's not necessary. Not necessary, but it is nice.
yeah. I love your answer to that. That is so true. Very instructive and quite beautiful. Now, apart from our own unique affliction, do you have any other works you've authored or say currently working on? And also, it just occurred to me, why did you have to choose this title, Our Own Unique Affliction? The affliction at the back makes it to be much poetic to me in nature. First, I'd like to ask you, what inspired the title of the book? And is there any other work you're working on or currently have other authored, maybe?
Yeah, sure. And thank you for the question. Yeah, the title, there's a conversation in the book between the vampire and a human, like
Yeah.
a and I guess an antagonist, if you will. And he just tells her, he's like, you
Mm,
know, we as humans, our own unique affliction is death. And
mm,
he tells her that her affliction is life because she loathes being alive because she lives forever. She thinks nothing has any meaning because there's no end for her. Um,
Hmm.
and whereas the humans are like, we're gonna die one day. That's terrifying. I would love to be in your position. So
Hmm.
I just thought it was kind of a dichotomy between the immortal and the mortal. And I think that's something we can cling to as well if we're aware that this
Hmm.
isn't forever. I think we live a lot harder because of that. I think we can really live each day a lot more presently and get a lot more out of this life than as opposed to just sleepwalking through it and then waking up and it's
Hmm.
over. So
Hmm.
long-winded answer to answer your question, but that's kind of where the title came from, just straight from the dialogue.
Hmm.
Um, in terms of other works, yeah, I've written quite a few novels that are still on the hard drive, but currently I am shopping a consensual possession
Wow.
novel. I'm shopping that one to like some independent presses because it is a bit on the shorter side for the
Hmm.
traditional publishing space, but that one's more based around like when does the possessor become influenced by the possessed and vice versa? Where does that
Wow.
gap kind of start and stop?
Wow.
So yeah, I'm pretty excited about that one. I'm pretty passionate about that one. It's a weird one. I know I can get a little long-winded, but and I'm also revising a Japanese ghost story that takes place in the States, and I hope to query that one probably in September, October.
Wow.
So that's kind of immediately what's on the docket for me, but just having fun.
Wow. That's an interesting concept you've raised, really. And that's a lot of work you've got ongoing. I hope you find some times to sleep. That's
Yeah,
quite
me
impressive,
too. Well,
quite
thank you.
fascinating, and quite a lot, really, because I know that writing sometimes takes a lot of time. You know, it's a
Hmm.
lot of, and one of the reasons why I feel writers need to be praised more for their work, for their artwork, because even the fact that you see a book and you said, "Oh, you're an author," there's a lot of work that goes into the making of a book. There's a lot of research going into it. There's tons of even bringing words together. Making things go from one chapter to another, transitioning it in a way that it's not extremely clustered or scattered to maintain flow, consistent flow requires a lot of strength, a lot of skill, a lot of passion and dedication. So quite commendable, really. Congratulations. Yeah,
Well, likewise, I know you're a writer as well, so you know how it is. It's it's like you're taking pieces of yourself and putting it on the page, and
absolutely.
sometimes you don't get them
Absolutely.
back, or.
Yeah. And just in case we have some viewers who are currently watching this interview and would love to get a copy of our own unique affliction, on what platform is it available on for purchase?
Yeah, I mean, you can find it anywhere. You can find it online bookstores. I mean, as an independent author and through an independent press, Shortwave Books, their website is the best place you could purchase it,
Yeah,
especially for the publisher as well as myself. But you can find it anywhere, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. You can order it in an indie bookstore. Literally anywhere, you should be able to get access to it.
that's great. And I left a link in the description part of this interview where interested viewers can get a copy of Scott J. Moses' books directly on Amazon and Barnes& and Nobles on his website and also on other platforms. I also left a link to his social media pages for possible followings. So thank you so much, Scott, for accepting the invitation to come up and have a chat with me around your amazingly written Our Own Unique Affliction. And also, this is quite interesting, quite commendable, quite awesome, and quite captivating. Thank you very much for accepting the invitation and coming on the show.
Well, thank you, Peter. This has been great. It's been nice to talk with you and just to get to know you as well. I appreciate
Yeah,
you asking me to come on.
yeah, lovely having you on.